Geshe Yeshe Tension Dini Never Shinduka. Give it to Toba Jubal. Getting the Lepemba Maduna Chindi and Anjua.
So the great Bodhisattva Shantideva said, Deldra Dini Never Shinduka. It's very difficult to obtain this life of leisure and opportunity. You can, with it, you can attain all the purposes of being human. If you don't make use of it in this life, how are you going to obtain it again in the future?
Namju Yunge, Samlo Tantum Gengi, Militinda to be come this on Giado. Oh, dear, never Shindukas, the Lela Wushimades, the Judy, oh, the Lela Madu Top Covers, this said animal.
So we have the time to practice the teachings, and we have all the favorable conditions necessary to practice the teachings. That's leisure and opportunity. Then if we do not take advantage of this, we also, in addition, we have our human intelligence, our ability, our discriminating awareness. Then at this time, then we have to take advantage of this.
Make it you shooting song Latene and a military cora. Oh, Tenetesa Maimba, Chimbata, Kiwangamadi Chimbata, Sobacom, Sundu Sam, or Tendecha Latene, Kiwangame Chimbata Latene, Sendelia, Neme Soba, Pomba Meva, Top. Oh, Tesa Maimba, Sobacom Latene, and me, Tam and Duba, or Tende Maimba. Seven down there, but she tongue what she chili tongue out in the day. What in it soon do somebody tanic or try to do some. No dinner, she's some day. She rubbed a chunk batch and a thunder toes, simply send out the madra. She rubbed down some down to get in the scare. Then the chance of part of the Chimbaga to draw chairs. Titoli a malam jab. Oh, make your shima to the she. Yeah, which was malam jabal tended to Kuyara. The Kudi Kabusonza, never seen the Combores.
Then it says that it's also this human life of leisure and opportunity is difficult to find, difficult to obtain, and this is due to its causes. We have to assemble the causes. The basis for obtaining this human life is ethical discipline, so we have to have formally practiced well, abstaining from the 10 non-virtuous deeds. Then the merit of this is assisted by the practice of the 6 perfections, where the practice of generosity allows or creates or is a cause for the our resources in this lifetime. Then the practice of patience gives us a human form that's what do you say, pleasing to look at, or attractive, something like that, then you have to have assisted that with making effort, or engaging in joyous perseverance, and then we have our human intelligence, or discriminating awareness, or wisdom. This comes from having previously practiced meditative stabilization and wisdom, so that those assist it, and then finally you have to have the dedication of these with aspirational prayers to be of benefit to all beings. So as these causes are hard to assemble, then the effect of a human life of leisure and opportunity is difficult to obtain.
Luda sem nigala tende chubda yude de kapdelia sosul pembe sende chigbu tandal ko zochuba maimba melundi sende chigbu sai tungye de chigbu tandal pa zochuba maimba to chima penjeve pembe tandal chubure sungora nyeba shinduka kibi tundu toba chubalas kibi tanda chima penjeve tanda kandishtumna tutube tene neba yore sungwa.
So then we have the what I say, ability to achieve our human purpose, or something along those lines, and this means that we're not just going to pass our life in trying to feed ourselves, doing all the activities we need simply just to feed ourselves and clothe ourselves and so forth. But we're looking for some kind of long-term benefit, where we'd benefit ourselves and in the future life. So we have to have what do you say, aims, adopt aims that are aimed towards the future.
Oh yeah. Bangladesh tenda tuye careers ne tene karsude. Sendi tautu tenge maimba chiva chive cheso ne ko ganga chi ngobu yinanda kandishina kora gyunga manga machile tene chima yongo ara. Tanda yoba den jundunia chima chiko deburi chik dede yordo. No de luda semnignane lugi jude ngaman dona ya dona pame kuda pai ma bajiri ya chita pede gyun de shibushi min bumda ma bushi gyun chetan de legi ora kene ma do shedu sa ko sokbudi ya metatana salbena karjene ko gyun de shile ndukwa no dina shi semde ko kado de yivna tudu tu mai gechi semble semgama koranda tumbe kyujingon do yore ngama yore shimai batin de yore de mi luda semchikbu mari chingo bu ganga de yaya denen kyujig yore mama don kora chinjun do do tinde kyawanga chite so do yo mari kyawashimalen gore su yora kyawashimalen satele atene dwari tu singarazo nyawa yeda tendo singendo ta tendo nyire da ngendo le majeba tendo lada mile kiade tenda tuede tenda tangbuterwa this is.
So what is the purposes then that we, or aims that we can achieve as human beings? Well, it's certain that eventually we're going to die, and but it's but our body and mind are not just simply going to end. Our body comes from is part of a continuum, I guess we can say, or has continuity from the past up to the present, and the it just didn't start just with the sperm and ovum of our parents in this lifetime, but their physical constituents came from their parents, and their parents then inherited their physical constituents from their parents, and then it goes on and on into the past in that way. And in this life, then our body will eventually be somehow disposed of, but it'll go through a process of change and then be disposed of, but there's still some continuity that goes on with the remains. And the same is with the mind. The mind doesn't, our mind, right, doesn't come from just from the parents. It comes from a continuum, a mental stream, if you want, in the past, and then in the present. Then it goes through a process of change, and then this mental continuum then will continue into the future. And it's not only with our mind and body that we can say that all things are like this, that they're all consist of a stream of changing, constantly changing causes and conditions and effects. Or what do we say? Causal chain, maybe we could say.
Lange son la maji visel hada mi ko ma tawa chede su tanda tambu de redo
la den masa
chi ngo kanga gyunga ma de gyunchi de labe
de lab so de len song la de recruit and then we will take a future life, and the life will be either we can take any form within the 6 types of living beings. The unfortunate rebirth would be as a animal or a hungry ghost or a hell being. Then the fortunate rebirth would be as either as a god who has or a deity who has long life or doesn't, and or has a slightly shorter life, or anyway, long life God. And then relative to humans it's long, then, or as a human. So then those are the that's the rebirth we're seeking, to be reborn as a human or a deity. And then that's one of the aims, and then to avoid being reborn into those unfortunate realms.
Oh yeah, that you watch Nesole Jessica Judy, some Jeshala Charge, Lunga Yusum Duquane, Monzumiki, what you said, Tirva. No, they do the call, take your Toma Sons, your Naman, the Sasha, some Jell Sawache, Miguel Lemangwara. Oh, there's a part diet and Madubring, Tanda Matemba Mado, Lang and Bakandak and the Sai, did some to some Mandibare, some Margel and Giovache, Chinjek Tom Simche, Shakbache, Tit and Dalite, Conduce, the Chatsayada, other son of the society, but I'll be Shidunga and so but in the chair. And it's send the better similar to Agat and make you a shoot the Chinuki Pang, Kiwachu the Chinuki Trubina, a day you did your Chimatalia, Yasung. Joka Lada Milky Chudi did it, or did it down with Trune, Joachimang and the Marches and Lada Milling about to give us so she turned out to two good days or good.
So then the practices that we engage in order to ensure that we avoid being reborn into an unfortunate rebirth and to have a fortunate rebirth as a human or a deity are principally the abstaining from the 10 non-virtuous deeds and cultivating the 10 virtuous deeds. Drinking Can Dangbonet, Karisumbanet.
No Dambo de Leodema. Yes, only Geshe Jude. Kiwa Toma Mevanako, Miguel Chula Sova Tende Shash, Mabusa, or Rangamata Mado. Oh, the Zuli Shakas and Givache. And it's Sendelia, Teneco, Miguel Chudipane, Chinipane, and then Lada Melikiego, Judy Sago, Chute Tubures.
Then, so the causes of being reborn into the miserable realms are, we've accumulated many, a lot of non-virtuous karma since beginningless time. So then we have to engage in a practice of although it seems like so immense, so such a huge amount of non-virtuous karma, we still have to mitigate that by engaging in a practice of confession, and or if you prefer, disclosure, which involves having some regret, and sense of restraint, and then engaging in various virtuous practices like prostrations and saying mantras and so on. There's a number of virtuous practices then you can engage in, and in that way you eliminate or purify yourself from those former non-virtuous karma, and then we in this life then we are very conscientious about avoiding or abstaining from the 10 non-virtuous deeds and cultivating the 10 virtuous deeds. And then in that way we ensure that we are reborn as a human or a deity.
Joangama Tibasawatus Daelia and Chachawada Shulato to Shebe. No, Dandisha. That is a delay or the Miguel Chubambe Sudim Song. And it Joachima Segu Nemelos of Mapumbe Sheduchim, but and it is Sujebala Soba, Tendeki Tondalia, Migitoma Divo, Mitisamsa. Tavaranya Sundatin de Mechet and Savacom, and it take it and the some. And then some days those checked under some Luta, Shirabli Changbachana, and Yochima, Shirab Chevada, Namju Chambuyoge, or Tendekira, Chambatu, Yamle, Chebutua.
And then we have to, in addition to that ethical discipline of the avoiding the 10 non-virtuous deeds, cultivating the 10 virtuous deeds, we have to engage in the other 6 perfections in order to provide for first for the resources that we need. We practice generosity, and then to have a pleasing form, or at least not to have a displeasing form like a scorpion or something, then we engage in the practice of cultivating patience, and then we make effort at doing these practices, and then join that effort with our in addition to the first 3 perfections, we practice with effort meditative stabilization and wisdom to ensure that we have a good intelligence in our future life.
Oh yeah, they do that. Give it turn to get another Kiwachima Ladami, Nesongi Kiwaka, Ladami, Kiwatoya Tendalia. Nimani men also medicinal Marcone, Chintama Chizu Yomayo, Luigi Gona Sojiba Majimba Yomayo, Yigona Napsin Nursing Logdala Soba Yomayo, Tadochen, teaching Chinukipano, Tirinti, Megawatin some Kawatin to some Sosu, Sikamanico, Megawan your Kawamar Dora. Oh, Tendicenico, ane shigala mula kiwe samlu shukchimbu kitine shisuna kola da miliki amadu ngesu kigmara o tende chen chukudwa.
So then we spend this lifetime constantly or conscientiously thinking, what do you say, monitoring our body, speech, and mind to make sure that we're engaged, we're not engaging physically in killing and stealing and so forth, and verbally we're not engaged in lying and divisive speech and so forth, and mentally we're not engaging in covetousness or malice and so forth. So then if we then are very careful to avoid these actions, then we over time in our lifetimes and doing what we can to cultivate virtuous our virtues, then over time our mind will change such that we have less non-virtue and we have more virtue, so that at the point of our death, if we can then generate a strong virtuous attitude, then we are ensured of avoiding rebirth in the miserable realms and having a rebirth into the well, what do we say, fortunate realms or happy realms.
No, yeah, that's the next bit. Drink the till I was chosen order. Joachima military, Solomaki, Yabuti, military, what here. Tunge never tend to marry some touch, even drinking some diner. Tunge never tend to marry Miller, Jacan, Chile, so but Tunge, Mambuchi or Dingaza, Cotere, Halikena, Tunge order. Let the human Gerala Rameba, Pumbun, Lenche, Baka, Doari to Kawachenako, Tunge, Shimata, your mare. Rala Rawake, your mare, Pumbu can look and teach long. And what Kazete, some Rawake, your mare, tended to go to Yan, Halaki, Yan, Yavalaki. The Toma Mevanetus, or the Tanda Maoban, attended Stagode, or te Yawamari till a Tago resum, 10 to $38, Tungeli 10 to $38. And to make it use of the Numo wangi less sabati, quiet to make cura. Or te in the time Numo, Bangurine, Dame, Tombani said, Ma Samsanganzi, Shukshimbutina, Shing Hati, Tendetio Maresam. And then Midawa some time, Midawa Chamo. Chung cups in the Midawa Rabat some Tangiora. Chua Midawa said, and Divya Tamachawas, Sabatamas ever said, Ravasam Tangiora. Or given drink as you tell him Midawata. Tame, Tombani, Numusawa, Tanzi, Timever Soyala Tame. Oh, Tenecos, Dana Shinkasura. Tunewa. Koene Lulonjule Chabatipa, Doyet and Dalia. Oh, there's a kanga Tungi Juchevare, Samlutan Yabus Tangiana, Tungi Juri Samche, Tungawa, Midawa Tungawa. Oh, Tene, Tame Valasoba. Oh, there's a complicador Numo, Kondo Naje, Chado La Soba, Numo Duzudanga, Samsang Zindima, Shuchun Rutayagi, Tabshishan, and Numo Seve Seva, Tarba Tungele, Tendo Tare, Tarba Trube, Tandati Tukiara, what did to Gudwa.
So then we could also attain the purpose for a kind of intermediate level of practice where we recognize that it would be better to be completely free of all suffering. We see that of course there's the suffering of the lower realms, which would be good to be free of, and that's a good idea. But then, even you're born as a human or a deity, there's suffering in that realm, and then you're also not free of the causes of our being reborn, which would be our afflictions and our former karma. And so once you're under our affliction, once we are under our afflictions and former karma, then we have to take rebirth and over again and we're sometimes born into a higher, better situation, sometimes born into a worse situation, and it goes on, and just what do you say, an endless amount of suffering. So seeing this, then one seeks liberation, complete freedom from any suffering at all, and this is based on pursuing the elimination of the afflictions. Amongst the two causes of former karma and afflictions, the afflictions are the main one because they give rise to the karma. So then one focuses on the afflictions, and so you have to overcome your what do you say? Well, the basis of the afflictions, which is we call it self-grasping, or conception of self, or apprehension of a self, and so this thinking I is we have to eliminate that, and so we try to. So you have to make effort to develop the wisdom that knows selflessness, but this is, at this point we are also developing a knowledge or a realization of subtle impermanence. We had some understanding of coarse impermanence from the first or initial level of practice, where one is what do you say, becoming cultivating a mindfulness of death, and then you. So you understand that you have to die, and that death is the time of death is uncertain. But at this point, at the intermediate level of practice, one is, or you can say, an intermediate level of spiritual development. One is engaged in cultivating knowledge of subtle impermanence. Then, based upon that, one also engages in coming to understand that everything in cyclic existence, in samsara, is not a cause, or does not give rise to happiness, but in fact gives rise to suffering. So then you concentrate on understanding or coming to know suffering. And so these two then give rise to an understanding of selflessness. So those are the main practices for a person at this level.
Rangi tōngi bādi kō jīvun tīngdā shī, mēnā wā tāndā shēba shī. Tō dī tāngzīng sī mārīk pārwa. Sōsō nē tāndā sōsō yāgbō chī, tāqbā, mē tāqbā lō tāqbā zīng, tā mē bā lō tā yu bā rāngō mē tā rī zīng yu wā rā. O dī wāngi yā nē ngā zīng shūk chīmbu shī, dī wāngi yā nē simjēn lē yu ngā shō tā shēn shō pār mā sī chāk tā, rīk rīk nī lūng bā tā, chū lū tā, mī rīk tā, chī tīndī chā lē, kā rīb nī chī. Wabolaya chik soso koya de la thakbar shenji chakba megyo chi dune pe mendo pa chene chwa kiya ki chakda o tangzin nganzin shuk chenpo ki di wange ne nga chwa de shen sho nga la koya ba ta me koya ba se chakda nge samlo tu ma shuk chungu ta ya de ene nge mo rim se tarba to gudwa di zo che gudwa.
So then what you're mainly doing at this point is meditating on the selflessness of the lack of, or the non-existence of, a self that exists from its own side, a kind of independent self, and in this way, then you're reducing your afflictions, primarily your affliction of attachment and hostility. And through reducing these, then you don't have so much attachment to your things that you associate with yourself or people that you associate with yourself. Like things that you associate with yourself or things that you would want, you think, and then those you associate with yourself, of the people you like and so forth. And then you also don't have so much hostility or aversion for things that you don't like or people that you don't like. And so then you have this kind of even-minded attitude, or you can think of it that way, or an impartial attitude, and some people think of it as being equanimity, and so that's what one produces at this point.
Oh yeah, Nemo Pang, Devangile Sayati, Shani, Tarbatovina, Rajibu Tabratu, Tabletuna, Marumbare, Susendi Pamada, Yidula Soba, Katinchibutus Gangalas, Tungete, Samluchi Mada, Susujanja Samlutana, Samluchin Marabre, Tindi, Pamarju, Simgendizo, Nanashi, Tungaji Naro, Toma Mevana, Tandama, Banda to stay in Gabushidare, Sawakin, Tezula. Simje tamje to Sendi Pama Samari, Simje Tamje Rangi, Tishipe, Mashimba Mado, Javanga Manam Zapada Mada, Neda, to Sendi Pama, Yen to Kandre, around the Chibu, Tina, Shimajura Chiga Mebe, Simje Tamje, doing it at Java Chedo, and then get Tapsichegore, Titandangali, Tapsichetu Omare, Techedo, Sanje Yukoma Togore, Telia. Tagwe Shenji Bechanju Semcore, Rale Shenke, she was in the Chimba to serve some de la Somalone, and the Chimbe part of the Shiraki part of the Chimbe, Sanje Yukomatova Shore, Kyoko say Yunde Kundenji Kibuchi, then again Simjatam Jake, come to Samba Pala and Yeltuni, and then Simjat Mamuta and Troop to Gure something. Simjatam Jake and the Sanje Yukomatova and Deva. Oh, tell you, Tagwe Shenji Becone, Chimba Sudin Solar Somebody, go to Atilumani, Kibuchimbe. Then the
next level of spiritual development and practice would be where you realize that the just thinking of your own freedom from suffering is kind of, what do you say, short-sighted, or is very narrow. It's a very narrow view, and then you try and you understand that all these living beings have been your closest relatives over many lifetimes and been kind to you just like your close relatives of this lifetime. So then each and every one of them has been kind to you in that way, and it's certainly not appropriate to neglect them and just to think of your own freedom from suffering, but to think of their freedom from suffering. So you turn your attitude towards from just thinking of yourself towards thinking of others and caring about others, having a great caring attitude towards others and thinking, how can I free them from their suffering, and so this is a kind of changing of your orientation from just a self-preoccupation to being totally preoccupied with others. And then at this point you realize that you can't, in your present situation, be of maximum benefit to all the limitless living beings. So then you understand that only by eliminating all faults and attaining all good qualities and becoming and attaining the perfection of a Buddha, then only in doing that, becoming a Buddha is the only way you can be of benefit to all beings. So you develop this altruistic aspiration to attain Buddhahood, and once you attain Buddhahood, then then you engage in the six perfections with this kind of attitude of wanting to be of benefit to all beings, and then once you understand that once you attain Buddhahood, then at that point you would be able to help each living being in accordance with his or her specific needs and disposition and so forth. So this is the practice of the becoming the bodhisattva, the one who has this what do you say, this aim of becoming a Buddha.
denso milu kebachin dende tobe kapdelia ene ra chindi chibu samayimba ene kwa dange sungi tungele tarwa chegu ra chibu kwa dange sungi tungele tarwa samayimba simje tamje ja kwa dange sungi tungele tarwa chegu deche do sanje ji ko ba toba chagu deche do shegu shebala yamsulambala shegu shebala tögöbe ene tedaga chedo tebachembe shidebe shushu nyambe kulung setamne sankugres.
So at this point, then you have to think, now that I have this human life that has these three purposes, then for the purpose of my own purpose of attaining a fortunate rebirth in my next lifetime, or for the purpose of attaining complete freedom from all suffering, or for the and reaching liberation, or for the purpose of attaining highest enlightenment for the sake of all living beings, or for my all motherly all living beings who are my mothers or closest relatives, then I will study these. I will study and reflect upon and meditate upon these teachings from the 400 Aryadeva's 400 stanzas on the middle way. So now we're on the 17th stanza here.
Tadirida Sumba Pula Chakba Shenla Madebar Temba Yuba Miteba Suda Sosu Puda Tapu said the Transitiva Sosu Puda Pama Nindela Soba Tindela Chakbati and issue Chambu Yorese Tin Zimbati Tegma Rese Samlutin Dogu Resungua. Oh, Cheso Tumitula Madebar Pula Nicardo, Pula Pai Chaba, Tembo Yodo Shena, Chaba Tembo Yoba Mindese. Oh, they go social pen talk about the social eat the timber cheva, the Majeva carry in a manner, and social bully Chabadi, Shuchambo Yose, Yodo Shenase. The Chaba Tembo Gayo, Marapu, Pamala Chabas in the Savala Siguaratanda, a Cabo Yovata, Pame Pula Cabo Yovate, Tembo Gemares, Tishegua. Oh, Zawase, Teve, Kebe, Tungeni, all the teach leption.
So here we are for the, if you look on page 307, you can see that we're talking about, with verse 17, we're talking about the unfeasibility of a father's, or you can say a mother's, attachment to his son being steadfast without depending on other factors. So here the objection or the thought is a father's attachment to his son is steadfast, irrespective of whether he is obedient or disobedient, or whether you like the child or or not, your attachment is steadfast. So then this is also thinking that attachment can be steadfast is inappropriate.
Nyundo dese, oh, ta pama da dress, Buddha dress, something, Nini do Kavani with the dress, some Tungede, me Ninglia, Sheda Tembuke, Mari Tembuche, Degma Resguara, Newton Don do Resguara, Minam Nil and Yindo this, Chala Dunge, Jawaye, Sembe Mede, Banya Tuse, and a pie, Pui Pala Chakbala Soba, Kavala Soba Tezua, Chala Dunge, Jawaye. Sembe mede bai puto zulachi pama tombala soba tendis tunge yorde ya dele lagware ji yagare ji chungsuna o tadi dunge di shigje ko kabure du res gyara o kepe delia or ale tish labna ene pet chel labna.
So then suffering caused by separation is quickly gone from human hearts, whether it's a child's a parent's attachment to their children, or a child's attachment to his or her parents. This goes away. This eventually goes away, and for instance, with children. If a better situation, if a good situation comes along after losing their parents, then they're happy again and don't have that suffering of separation.
Teko tile lava chen shanda ji chung suna ko kawa de mevre du rin joba mevre du ris gora o de sunje de la pedelia pena kiabu ji lembo de do wo de pesi do lembo kawa chen singe do kiabu ji she tele lembo kawa chen singe shware ene ko zu sonal pa drone tu sin tan do imbra lu diza mimai tende teshe ta ngemai ne mimai do tong de tu ji sara o teshe ne Gebu simje ko se tichigara ane to lumbu de labja o de gebu de lumbal pendo ye tim makira nga kirse gebu le atine nge buda nangmi do ya buta ro chi nga che ne koran ba chulin do che ane chibu de gebu chu tang che ko ba se che sa el kindura o tene chu ye de ke de budu zu tebele lumbu pu lumbu ka je budu zu tene turn out that Bala Shita has a consumption that yet. Can it get to you on a Dutch Bala Shita catching Marise, Yamba Mambutare, Norjala Mambutare, Norjala Mambutare, and the concert Baba Drombe to meet the Mercere, or Tayafuchons, touch of some Kawacere. Chesa conjugate by the Chichile Shawam Kawatsewa said, Teleyaga Jonsoko, you Shagramado, could Tempoke Yoma Rescue or a deep Sunjere.
So then the other two lines in the verse is C2, attachment's instability indicated by suffering's end. The point of this verse is that the instability of attachment, or liking, I guess it's another way of thinking about the attachment. And so the example is of the king. I guess the king's name was something like the pleasing one, and he was crossing the water in a boat when a non-human spirit captured his boat. And in those times, spirits were people would be controlled by spirits in this way. So one of his ministers, I guess he was going to then devour the king. So one of his ministers, entrusting his children to the king's care, he asked the king, and the king said, yes, of course, I'll take care of them. He jumped into the water shouting, "Take me and let the king go." the boat was released. But when the children heard of their father's death, they suffered. But then, because the king cared for them and gave them a lot of presents and so forth, they said, oh, this is a better situation than we had when our father was around, so they just forgot about their suffering. So it's like that. So it's kind of worldly people, people who, what we can say, like superficial, right? Superficial worldly people, then, that the grief doesn't last forever, and the attachment is very, unstable.
Pajodi Tawandula Tungamendugare, Randa Chibare, Sambe Swadiana, Tikon itself, I know Doeke Omara, which is a Chibutu, Temboke Omari, Soso Dilla Lagua Chonsona, Di Yoshagri Kumbaka Chagua, or Disigda.
So it's talking about, we can say worldly people, or I forget, there's other ways of. If that sounds bad to you, I can't think of another way of saying it. Then, what we're talking about, though, is people who are just superficial, thinking of their own, like the parents are thinking, that the children should make them happy, and the parents and the children are thinking only about their own happiness that they're receiving from their parents. There's not any real depth of caring here. So the depth of caring comes about through a feeling of empathy, where you recognize that these persons are just like yourself. That they whether it's your parents or your children, that your parents and children are just like you, and that they want happiness and don't want suffering. So when you have that, so then you think, they're just like me. They want happiness and don't want suffering. So when you have that kind of feeling about others, then there's some depth to your caring. It's not like what is being described here through attachment.
No, because Kevogi Pudi Tushasha Suduko Sagi Sierra. Just you do so. Oh, Taco Shisha Sudu, Taka repair which you shall She go boo in the bush in the Kayatake or Marwa. Dina could do Senako Mingdi, Mingdi Segri, some Kevu to Shashis in the Mandiri Sangura. Shisha Senaka, Samara. Sako di Bui, but some bits are in a Shisha Senate, Assembly Yongora.
So then we also had a similar example of the father who is told that his son was being rebellious, and he immediately disliked him and wanted to kill him. And his son had already died, but then they said he died, and he was just happy. Oh, now he's thinking only of like his reputation. I think it's really indicated by this. It's a very superficial sense of caring about some of a son who he had formerly felt was beloved. Then he was also ready to go and kill his son when he heard that he was being rebellious. So this is an example of the lack of care.
Pushewa so yila nyange chawa miri jan jikdenji tunjula tuede pula dekba so chakwe so se. Pushi ne sosu nyange che simde che tato ane ngo dab gari che na pendo de mindu se ta ko ha ko ra. Pendo de yo ma de yina jikdenba su chi drone tende ma je na lungbe lo se re ti dik mi do ti che bu re samna si go ra. O di dik ma re si go ra.
So then the next verse has this objection or thought.
The
18th stanza here has this thought. though it is inappropriate to grieve in one's heart for a dead son and others, for the sake of convention, one must beat one's breast and so forth. This is for the sake of just, what do you say, cultural custom and so forth, then they have to show a lot of grief. So then Aryadeva responds, oh, this is also is not appropriate.
Oh, never sirwa chasing Jansigora. Never sirwa chasing Jayu, then Menyam Shashin does. Oh, Chiditron and this was a bear. Nene God that to be Shidat Dunge and Simdation, so Kibu Mangacha, but the Yundem Maba the Haku Gisera. Never see what chasing Yundem Maba Shashin does. Depend on game to call a penguin, so penguin would never do some Haku does. Yinako, Jigdangi, Loxus on the Check Lagravaco, Sambara. The Kurda Nila Chiju Dikera. Similar depend on the Hagu Kugilia, Chilolia, the Simdechagacha, Yuji or Asia. Oh, Kedaniela Chiju, you say. They are Dala Miriso, de Sosolia, de me Jigdachi Sigri, some Yuji and Digmar, Soso Rawan, one him, but one him, but then could raise you.
So, knowing that it is of no benefit, still you have injured yourself. You make yourself a hypocrite, which also is improper. So here that you know it's not of any benefit to yourself or to others, and still you're injuring yourself through whatever show of grief that the culture asks you to show to others. Then if you know it's of no benefit to do like that, then in fact what you're doing is deceptive. You're misleading others into thinking that you have some kind of real concern there. So then that being so deceptive or hypocritical is improper.
Oh yeah, Tadi Pedelia did one, Pena permission, la chibar, lover shao she dani, surgeon, lobendo, never the rouse. Nemelo sultan, melchomia that you said, or Togashin and melchomia soba that she. Tandema Chomia Sosu Ramshika and the Moki something literature or esse, Kigay Balomne, and if I love Gacha Sosu Shiva and Dades, Wada. Pendoni Omar, Sosu Jigangi teaching to science, Sosu Dungache, Tabe, Dungache, Chitani, Sosu Kara, but Pendoki Omara. What did I say this? Wada.
So then, the example here is. As maybe expressed briefly here, it's like one woman who promised to teach another woman how to commit suicide and, proud of being the teacher, killed herself. Here we're talking about somebody who's jumping, like they have in India, the idea of jumping into a fire when your husband dies, so to show your degree of grief over the husband's departure. So then she got so proud of doing it, teaching this other woman, then she jumped into the fire herself. So it's like that, yeah.
This one. Oh yeah, what do you love? How come it? That Shiva did the Kasra. Nidu Chimanum, Taco, that Tunation, Shiva, so collected and Tondada Mabahago to the Yina, Nidu Chima to the Conjoya, Wune, Tondalia, to the Chico to Sanasagara.
So the next verse then is treating the objection or the thought here, though self-torment is of no benefit, nevertheless it cannot be dispensed with if one is going to have relationships with the surviving relatives.
Ta tunge number je tabu sigora. Koalea tunge de Kangalia be Jabana Shinchi, Jabana Kangalia, kept the Yore sigora. Tunge number je tabu jigden de Yonsu kept comes, Koale comes, Jaganashila Soviet Tunga, Java Toma Mevan Sandeba Yamje, Doari Tunga, comes a day or race, Tunga Kande or race sigora. Tigalia Takara. Be pejo de tanda mesh and yanga tunge so tunge yangbade tunge gal tunge treva de chigbade sora tunge jurbe kyola tunge gebe chishi chase tunge wa yimbi bagale tega tunge treva tanda me ha kugi so tunge karjen te yore sora.
So the verse says, people in this world wander full, as it were of suffering. Why fill with suffering people who already suffer? So the idea is here that wandering the world means that we all travel through all the different types of rebirth as an animal, a hungry ghost, howling, and undergoing all sorts of suffering. So we're already having wandered in this, going through all these lives and undergoing all this suffering. We're like full of suffering. So then why would you then bring more suffering to somebody who's already or to those who are already suffering greatly?
No, tanda deko jikden delia ji puta pomo da nye dula sok batende jurne ane tunge mangbo ji ko nyong de kyap de yo de tikalia tunge sarva shen nyong jurne tanda yo ma re sigidwa.
So then for what do you say, brothers and sisters and relatives and so forth, if they're already undergoing so much suffering, then why would you bring suffering, more suffering to these people?
Oh yeah. Mala jaza pedelia, mala jaza debra cheba dan drawa teda, drawa tobala kweba chungse jamebe, rani koale tabe tabla beabar chavos. Ma yuna ma deliatene, sarabitende tamnene ya. Toz sibuche ya dur durwa ma nge toba yungurwa dina shere se tanda ke yo mare tele tezu nyogda shenja de papa ne tarba drube chedu baba chane yagre so.
So then the example is of the two brothers whose father had died in the presence of one and mother had died in the presence of others. When they met together, they made each other miserable, which was not of the slightest use. Rather than doing that, it would be much better to put one's effort into the means of freeing yourself from cyclic existence. Wow.
Yeah, the Tama de la massage started. Ngaba nidu so da lenjik do ala chakba merik ba sigdo. Nidu so da lenjik do ala chakba merik ba la ni sigdo. Any da and drug by hearing while a chakba merik ba che. Ta nidu so da lenjik do drug ba de lenjik do te adelia shenja shu shambu sheva rigma rest shek do. Tilla.
So we didn't mention it before, but
yeah,
we're on the 20th stanza now, and if you look in the outline on page 307, that we had gone through the inappropriateness of grieving over a dead person in front of others, and the inappropriateness of grieving for a dead relative to ensure a close relationship with surviving relatives. Now we're the inappropriateness of attachment and being with relatives and so forth, and this is the actual explanation where it says the objection. I guess we didn't get that. Well,
that is the Garsudas no travel de Dungi Guy answer. Nian do a TV Guy be Chagba resource no Nidula Soba Cabinet Samatsunyam don't do a day. Travel de Dungi Guy answer. You know, soon do a day. Teve Guy Sigora or the Indizako, Travel Dungi Guy Yanda and do a day Casure, Teve Guy be. Nyedan Dualaya, Shinja Cheba, the Kawa Cheba, the Rigiduas and Aswara. Tindigmare Shigaro.
Then the thought or the objection here is, though parting causes suffering, being with one's family causes happiness. Therefore, attachment is reasonable. Sure, it's difficult. Separation is difficult, but when we're together, we're very happy. So attachment is reasonable, and the answer is it is not.
Tadelaba Kangin Dua Kayan dese, Keranye Duda, Chikabunibula Sobatsu, Rurucha de Kawe Kuyinasera. Oh, Trawa Chidar Kamatene, Trawa de Ako, Kawe Kure, Yamdo Salko, Samlatangurmado, Trawa de Megus Dungeche, Dua de Yabudu Sekawashene, Medibares Gara. Trawa Chidar Kama Yese. Dua dane trawa da leji kyor namene dua de yo chenje de la ko trawa de yongju de ko ta chuju nyamdo yo bare sura ko kurim reshire ma do shige de wa trawa de la kabu yo dua de la kabu yo trawa la kabu me se yo mare sura de nyamdo sa niga ti yo ko ko nyamdo yonggo wa de ko rang shire sura
so the verse says, if meeting is a joy to you, why is parting not also a joy? Do not meeting and parting both seem to go together? So except for meeting and parting sort of being in sequence, they're actually they always are together. So why is it? How could it be reasonable to be joyful for meeting together and then be so unhappy when you're parting?
Shivoja Kabu Shenja Chiati, Rigmare Sigara, Karsen teacher de Loco Dua de Yoyati, Tacho Sara, Koyako, persons of Karina, Tama de Cuveti was on that. Tambo de Shivoja Kabu Chema, Tama de Yonde, Cosem Dreja Dungi Lavar to Kiyordo. This is a good Damboneco, the chose no, the gelati, you some Shedako. Lagbar to Shenja Yomare Sam Goyara, Dungan Yurdu Yora, Titan da Shake Yora Mother, Kawachi Yomare, Chari Yagurus Yomara.
So it's not saying that you shouldn't be happy to be with relatives and it would be better to fight with them or something. No, that's not what's being mentioned here. It's being indicated here. What's being indicated is that you shouldn't be so excessively happy or pleased by being with others, so that you're more realistic and that you understand that sure you're happy to be with those close to you, but then the end of eventually, when things go well, then it's just the nature of cyclic existence, such that when things are going well, worldly and you're experiencing worldly happiness, then eventually it will change into suffering. So then, if you have a realistic perspective on then you should moderate your feelings of pleasure or happiness.
That de pedelia de Tangme Tagalos Kimzachi and the hot troops Tashiba Yoma de Truba. The Trumne Ladi Drumne Nico Tashiba Lever. Nala Lever, she Sarati Dushkarina. Tashiba led Tinyam do. Nana mas Tamishiba Shora, Tashinana Madelenji to Sukadu in Yamdo do Yishara, Nana Madelever, and it took our jay on this. Ding had to do Tashiba the Truimado, Nana Madetuji Majun Sierra, or did Tashiba the Nana Madeniam don't do the mother, did Tashiba Tamishiba Nana Mamma Yoma Sierra, or dinner she has chiri.
So there's an example here of a man, this is kind of an Indian custom, okay, that man went to propitiate his tutelary deity, his personal deity, and then prayed for good luck. he received his promise. That night, Lady Luck, followed by Mistress Blacknose, entered his home. The man asked Lady Luck, "Who is this?" She replied that it was Mistress Blacknose. He protested that he had received no promise regarding her. So then Lady Luck answered, "Wherever I am, she inevitably is too." So then wherever you have the good, the bad is inevitably going to come along with it. I guess we could think of it that way.
가세 도대체베 가세 신부시지나 그 내가 사두데 신부요하데 제마 그 동해지기도 와서 어디도 찍발해서
so then the second example is just if you have anyone who eats, if you have really good food, then if it's poisonous, then even though it's really good, you're inevitably going to die and experience mortal suffering. So it's an example again of how what do you say? In worldly way, the suffering accompanies pleasure.
뭐야 다들 쇼로가 되게 가르쳐래 타마고 타르 제왕 예자서로 타마 되베 타마들 제왕 예자 아니 제베 동에데 제베 동에 제와데 뒤통동래 아니 도와데 유정부도 와데 소자고 도와들 가와데 신지 차바르 그도 삼바이나 되게 말했어요.
So then the third objection for the next part of this section is with verse 21 is expressed in the following: the suffering of separation can be discounted, for though an eventual parting is certain, the time spent as friends is long. So the suffering is just for a short time, and we're together for a long time. So it makes sense then to have attachment.
Dela Toma Yumishin, Deba Delaco Toma Kayoma, rescuing a manager Yora, and the Mao Tama Yuman, and Mao Badela Tama, that's also say never Chayaki Yomarwa. China Kujin Dutonshi, Kerangi, Kusechina Kuji, Doade, and a Yuring Butone, and a Rimburg Gurjas, when I said Treva de Tarangiri, Treva de Taring, using a yard de. And then you remove Tundu subject somebody Meriguare said, Rimburg Yatawa me said.
So the verse reads, when the past is beginningless and the future endless, why do you notice being together but not the separations, though they be long? So basically, Aryadeva is refuting this idea that somehow the separation is just a short duration. It's not short, and it's extremely long. And why you're just thinking that that being together is somehow long and
Chema de Cotes, a deco Tebaterva. Java de Tada, Chema Solomon Ringatwa. And do a deco Digitundurva. Zideco Digitundu de Ringburi, somebody, Java de Cusaresaco, Temata to some days at each Yeloke, Mavis in the Samatara, when it's Java de using it as
So the person is not really thinking clearly about the separation from whoever he or she is attached to, because if you look at it, what do you say, relative to the period that you were without the person until you met the person, and then once the person goes, how long you're going to be separated from them, it's like a huge amount of time relative to this very short time of being together.
This one. Oh yeah, that they pedaled. Michiko song jamne, so Nangmi, Chuma de Desha, Kotarim Buldo Shaibara. Tarim on the Yering Bugorne, Tsuyan Disa Korangi, Chuma de Mishandash, the chance of Japse, Dosarimbara. Tenako Lumbatani will let you go to Geshe the Core, Tenako Sembedandro, and it is Nala Dware, and Nala do this at Teko, some Deshara. Some Deshama Kotene, comes to Captain Deshara, Shara. Sako. Travel again, co treasure, you book her there, travel, to do some break your Morocco. At that dress, I'll teach you let every day till you take your Marwa. And they go choose a day yonder, may do so do some day chick or take the chick by the
So the example is of a man who had gone to another country and lived abroad for a long time, in fact, and left behind a wife who became another man's partner. When the man came back, he heard about it from the people living near his village. He did not want to come back when he got there, but he sort of heard about it before he got back, and then nevertheless went to the seducer's house. He suffered from the pangs of separation that arose then and there, though he had not suffered because of the preceding separation. He wasn't worried at all. He wasn't anxious at all about being separated from his wife for such a long time. But then when he got back, just even in that short time, he got very, anxious and worried a lot. And then so based on that anxiety and worry, he then engaged in a suit. He sued the new partner, the seducer. So it's like that.
Medo Dongan Dawa to the Sabo Shendam, she Sabo Tangbo Yabata, and a carsore. This Yordo. Sogas, the metal, the Kangaya, Shari Capsura, Telesogasigra. Soga metal, Sobakian, Pay, Kango Bushan, Peki, Atida, or to Tunduri, the Pay, what is Yora? I did that Java the hearing boy in Ayako, it Tundu dinner, you ever the Pay, what do I do? Question Jachi regress, and now to Rigma Sigara.
So then another thought is coming up here. In this next verse, or objection, though separations are long, okay, so I'll accept that separations are really long, but the suffering of separation vanishes when the mind is distracted by the marvels of the different seasons, such as the flowers blooming in spring and the bright autumn moon. So then that means that attachment is appropriate. So, and this person is saying, well, Teresa.
Oh, Geshe Maso Tuti Nam Sigara, Geshe Dan Tangji Dan Yuzam Set to Sigara, Duzi Tundu di Yabure Shara Kotagi. Never Dradan Dradu there. Duzu said, when they generated Tundu in a Rumina, Soso Dana Shires, Soso. Sergin ko sege dosha yorwa de ngeba dadan dragyo dese tena dragyo de dala namge kyende chame jas chuduji tundu jinalia 지금 메도도 샤 남가도 ngomboshide shinja cheya karyo resgora o tiduza kera mezede zoaje shiwala ta nyero duzude kejichiga Sambachende Madeji Shivalia Neru Rochugo Resgora. The Kavene Maris to the Kiltede, never Shires.
So then you shouldn't think of the verse says time consisting of instants and so forth is certainly like an enemy. Therefore, never be attached to that which is your enemy. So then, if you're thinking that with time, then you will feel better after separation, then it's not so, because time actually is, as it's constantly consuming your life with each passing moment, then is why we then reach our reach our death. And so time can be time is actually our enemy if you think about it. So why would you be attached to your enemy?
계직 세도와
계직.
근데 탕지승게 왜? 계직
디 계직이와.
계직 죽줄라 탕지세를. 제바드나 계직다 탕지다 유섬시와 누가? 어디라고도 남네 탕지세나. 계직마 죽줄라 탕지. 인생지리야 차 숨죽고에 차지리야. 아니 가서를 뒤지 탕지세기도.
So it's talking about sort of
계지다 숨도가 뒤
G instance so in the commentary you can see that time consists of instants, moments, and brief spans. There's a distinction between these where the instant because 계직 단 two
계지되고 뒤대 계지만 찍다 그래서 셰사서 통시들아 디 죽주 담발이야 탕직식이다 아니 유점 시도자 니샤지리야 차숨주 곱시게베 차지리 유점지식이다
So then again I just wanted to explain that when talking about instant we're talking about that very small measure of time where you have the ultimate smallest particle moving just a little, and then there's 60 of those means a moment, and then brief spans means if you divide the day into 3 parts. So that's what's being talked about here in terms of how time gradually consumes the moments of your life, and time is, I think maybe it's not clear why are we talking about time, because seasons are, when the Tibetan sort of talks about seasons like that, it's a certain time, right? So that's why time comes in here.
다들 빼들이다. 두수통통이 비다고 약보여서 내 가와리 그래서 하시라. 딜이야다 빼들이야. 빼나 깨모 쯤에 동에서 깨모 정바 주부치셔라. 아니 뭐지디 약부족이 버셔. 그 아마도 전다도 그 셰셰다 시다셰네 동해 양기 어디 거기 동해 삼기요 말을 가르스네 그거가 약부치 그래 삼제 동해 셰셰 미기 버셔는 그 말을 삼기로 어디 나시래서라 빼나게 동해 고만 깨자 셴물라 착바 제게 냥에 매제 버셔도 두슬라 착바 매자스 두슬 통도도 비다 부른 도와도 삼 텔리아 가부체 돼야돼 그 동해기 주르대 얘나고 가부제대요 동해를 삼고 말했대 야부 인삼 대기가 됐어요. 용무대 진달래 그가 야부지 그래서 가제 셰셰다나 그 그르제 개버시 대기도 와.
So then an example is that of the old servant made to suffer continually by her mistress was attached to her and did not complain. So it's like an old servant who's always thinking, well, I'm getting some benefit from my mistress, so it doesn't matter how she treats me and so forth, and in fact she's suffering the way that the mistress is treating her is producing a lot of sufferings, but she's just sort of ignoring that and thinking about what she's receiving from the mistress in terms of reward, food, money, so forth.
뭐야 다 숨바 자왕엠발라 착바빠네
두샤나 치치나 두츠디 컨트 드리와디
어디만 저주잖아. 저도 왜?
치치나 드리와 요르마.
저도 왜?
Does anybody have any questions at this point? I don't know. We could break for questions. Or we can go ahead with the with the next three. We've finished this section with the next three verses. So, however you all do a Shiba Yoma. Okay. China. So we'll just proceed then. Sort of like a cereal, right? What's the guy going to come up with next? Then, so here, with the advice to make effort to practice the path to liberation, giving up attachment to bad actions. So this next verse then, I'm sorry, I'm reading the topical outline on page 307. And so then this particular verse is the inappropriateness of relying on punitive action regarding what must be done.
ngar sheba te dar rig me ji sa kira sheba tinashi ore sha sigurwa ina ko nyenda trevar ka ve se nyenye dula so ba te da te de kale khakbur sta de ko imba de jin don be chöchi nge de wan du chen she gwa te jigne naw su men do she na se be kimpang ne naw sun do ne ni chöchi de yong ma re sam na sigora oh do she na so.
So then here it says, though what has been said is reasonable, separating from one's family is hard, and fearing that, I cannot go off to the forest. So it's talking about separating from family and undertaking liberation, or practices to attain liberation. Wow.
Moya did it, that's all. Long hair travel and jigba is good. Loading and baggy, and it nye she la so but to that travel, Java de la Jignese, Kimne never menjuna, Tezukanga Lurtang, Madubache, and Tezula Shanji Chane, Kimla Teva in Asgora. Keba sushi never ne, Chagwe Chebe Cheber and Gurse, Timmy Kebe Seba, Samlu Mares Gora. Keba sushi never ne chagwe chebe cheber gyose kiranye nyedu da trawa de kirange maje na ya ani chidage ko nimaje trechu ede ko cheba chidage cheba chene trechu ede never res gora dile soso de yo ba cheje pa trene maje be che cheba gyapchu ni shanda ji wangme do chechu ba de yagri samge keba sushi de yo mare se gora chagwe chebe cheber keba sushi never ne soso chagwe ba de maje be che cheba tange shanda ji ge chechu ba de la kawa chi marwa se gora chida shin ji never do trechu gres gora ti maje ga ne chirang de ne de yo ba chena shanda le pemba soso le pemba tumne to yo res gora ti maru na de ne ta chu sa res gora cheba chen chi gres gora ni keba ne soso pendo ge ba soso chi gre shanda cheba temni chechu ma res gora.
So fool, because you fear separation, you do not leave home. Who that is wise does under punishment that what must certainly be done. So then, what's being said here is that eventually you're going to die. That you're going to receive the punishment of the Lord of Death. Then at that time you've sort of been under your obligations and so forth to others, and never had the time to do something that would benefit both yourself and others. So you would go without having achieved that. So why not now separate from your families and friends and achieve something that'll be of both benefit to yourself and others?
Chala dongi de le do tai jab gro oh tene lungba de le cha che de phu go de so so nge ne pa phu sha na ya shu re si go ra ba bi na chama kon ju che 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 karan ke bi che ba che je o karan de cha de ke me du che la so ne cha de jab go re si go ra o di na shi do a de so so fa che ne ta yo ba che ne che yo re ke me ne chama kon ju ge chi da shin ji che go re stand de pe de chi ba re
so then the example expresses this. Do not act like villagers who would not pay the taxes they definitely had to pay until they were made to suffer. So the idea is that they, instead of just paying right up front right away and avoiding the suffering, the punishment, then they sort of waited for the king and the king's tax collectors to come and exact some punishment on them before they would pay up. So then idea is of separating from your home and those who are close to you is to do it when you can achieve some purpose, not to do it when there's no, when you what do you say, when there's no way of achieving any purpose.
This one. Yeah. Taniba chawang yambala chawba tane thongmani ne imba tenribar tamba sikwa. That juden koye chawang yambala ya ani shenja de tane thongmani ne imba tenrigres tishegdo. Ani tu nam ngebar tang ko me je se tedana ya je de kimge kurbo ne ngebar nausun roshanas. Oh, tate tako de samgewara nitu nam ngebar ta go me ore ta nitu nam tamata ko kaga cheche rujure le tang ta namada na ko me ba cha rugure sigara go me je te ta ne ta da nga ani kimjan jene bugu butula so ba tinde ma bu che ne ani te che so loya ka jin lepsuna ne ya tambe che tuje ne embatene ya bu sambe na. So
the thought or objection here is, though one must certainly leave one's relations, nevertheless, only after bringing up one's son and handing over responsibility for the family to him can I definitely go off to the forest. So the idea is here that there's all sorts of responsibilities that one has through having a family. Then he's feeling that, oh, I have to take care of all those responsibilities before I go off to become a renunciate.
Kundi chene sawarne se chawandi chene sawarne nausun rocha nyam semna sigara. Oh, gangshi che jang tangjawa teche yuande chishi yose. Ne gangshi che jang tangjawa sudu. Gangshi che jang tuanbe sawa kimzang zimbala soba chebe na ngebar du tuanbe sawa yang kaga che kimzang todre re de yordo. Tangwar chawa. Ne deche gangshi che jang tangjawa teche yuande chishi yose. Te debu tuanda ke medwa. Tanda debu yudu ne ko tuanda yudu ne tangje. Ane chebe yene soso tuanda yore. Chema ko madaranda tangru de te kukaba ke yomedwa sigora.
So then the verse saying, you may think you must obviously go to the forest once this has been done. Whatever you do must be left behind. What is the value of having done it? So again, if you don't take advantage of the time when you can make what you do the most meaningful, then you won't. Then why wait until you can't do that?
This one, Pedelia, Pedelia, driven from Geshe, so Lumba Shandaj into Yore. Tishaya Machim, Porugil, taught in the Tarja Tevina. I'm busy, two carriages. Put down the carriages, Cocache, Yomarta, Kawaki Yomarwa. Oh, didn't I say, Andy, Penny Penny Delia. Michi Shindo Amaputa, which is Chokwenal Yoimbaro, Chokwenal. Tenaco de Alene, Trugiore. And the Karjak Bass, the Island Trin, and the Yugis. Tinashes, Tandaka Yamari, Sulin Pantomine by you.
So the two examples are good illustrations of the meaning here, in the sense that where the first one is a traveler stopped on his journey and began to file a stone. Asked what he was doing with it, he simply said he was filing it down. No particular purpose, I'm just filing it down. And then the other one is, the second example is it must have been a very ripe mango fell in the dirt, and the dirt was all attached to it. And some person picked it up and then washed it off, and he said, why are you washing it off? And then he said, well, I'm washing it off and then I'll throw it away. So then basically it's senseless. They're talking examples of just senseless activity.
Oh yeah, that's right. Although somebody records Midaba Combe Penny Shekwa. Oh, Midaba Combe Penny Dele, get it now, so image is your now some church and the social turbelam to education, but it's all race. Yina Dada Dagiwala Chagbe, Jigna Druminus, Kimzang, Nami, Tanda Legacy among Buyode, Dendro to Mares, Drotukumidus and Asgora. Oh, they cannot show Medaba Magumzare, show Medaba Kumbuena, Dada Dagiwala Chagba train, and then the other. Dagiwala Chagba train, they call Chakshin Majeva, oh, Tene, Castle Cho Medaba Kumbuena, Chakshin Meba, and Drotu Grace.
So, this is the benefits of meditating on impermanence. So, though the objection is though going off to the forest is of greatest importance, fear because of attachment to I and mine makes one unable to go. So here, the meaning is that we're through getting rid of attachment to my relatives, my son, my children, my family. If you get rid of these kinds of attachments based on I and mine, then one is what do you say? One will be achieving more benefit. Well.
Oh yeah. Tani chu nyam semba sigdwa. Ra chu nyam do semba tu kyundo. Angebar do chu hare chinge ye samje samlo. Chua medaba yane yang do chen denge tezu sigora. Tani chu nyam semba. Kala ngebar yo bas kansa kala chua tu kyundo samlo tange de yo ba yena sigora. Mone tene chakba yong da chirite ko chakba changma da te du gre sigora. Chidalaya kala jise rani chigiri samza chidalaya jikimares kares ko chu nyamdu chua medaba tamba de sendilia tene mekiwa mesa kewasha jisa jitegri tendu chirensu senako shiake yo marwa.
So then the verse goes as follows: whoever with certainty has the thought, I am going to die, having completely relinquished attachment, why would they fear even the Lord of death? So this is the result of cultivating a mindfulness of death, is that you think you have the thought, I am going to die. So then when you give up your attachment in this way, then when it comes time for you to die, then you won't have any fear that time. Well,
yeah, that was the sheriff to what did you learn? Did that Dani chew Yamdo Nebartene, Samlo Yobatela Sigua, Semba Kala, Nudu Chiva Tachuba, Neva Yoba Yuba Tene, Dunzip Tamje Panes, Changmandu ala Soba, Tuzula Shenja Pane, Dala Ya Sebe Chaba Yonso, Tangi Chir, Sosula Chaba, Tia Tane, Chidala Ya Kalam Jidi, Jigba Pane, Tarba Tobar Yuna, Nasun Jigba Pane, and it Tarba Tobe, Tabla Chungit, Tena Nasun Droada, Buddha Java La Jigba Majurus. Kimne Kimpang the Nasun Droala Soba, Nisha Travala Soba Tezulia, Jigba Yonsupan to Gresira. Or Tagwaris to stay in some Dizako, Shenja Chambuchigarno. Or Tagwadus there, Mea Kagandrea in some teacher in there, Raja Soso Chima, Pay out on that to Guru Sambena, Uncle Shenja the Chudugara.
So, if we then cultivate or meditate on death and impermanence, you become free of attachment, and the idea is that you're through constantly cultivating an awareness of or a mindfulness of death, then you have then this reduces your attachment to your family, your friends, and so forth. So then, the benefit of this is that you'll be much, much happier yourself.
Yeah. That is right. That and that. What they pay there, Pekajil ko Kala, do you get Kala, Yabushi, Yonako, Sana, Tanda, Shimbushi Diora, Inako Tadalia, Tungenji Yozako, Duda Chebe Kasede, Dorja in Bashindo, or Tene, Duala Soba Tendel Shenji Shabade, Dorning Ebardo, and it Tavanjo, Tarbela, Sombachago, Resido.
So the analogies or example here of wearing a ring to detoxify food here and giving up poisonous foods. Wearing a ring on one's hand to detoxify food. The wise maintain awareness of impermanence to destroy disturbing emotions. And so this awareness or mindfulness of death is like that. And one will enjoy well-being through giving up poisonous foods. One will achieve definite goodness by giving up all attachments.
Oh, the Taco Chiva Metabadi, Yaboji Samlutani, Telia, in the Kumshi Yabuchon Sonasungua, and a Lam Koma Namja, Baba Mebarkivas, Chiva Metaba Yaboyana, and a Kasura, Ninju Chanju Simsero. Lam Koma Koma to Zepe, Nur to Tigrese. Chiva Medawa, some of the Shuchimbu Mina, Karinako, Sendi, Shenjachi Wangi, Shulachine, Kiwachime Penji, to a shoot up to Guamara. Oh, Tinde, Kiwashendo, Kiveshen, Giveshen, Poto, Sumbanashi, Katambella, Poto, Sunshase. Chiva Medawa, Lola Maje Bado, Tokba Kive, Lam Gagba Yembe. Ragwe Medabada, Chua Medabe, some of the Shuchambus Rangila Maji Bado, Lam Shenda, Tobe, and Deki, Samanga, the Young Maresungua. Oh, they do Ragwe Medabada, Travel Medaba, Niga, and it took Gundendo, Comgurese.
So then, if we look at what's being said in the following paragraph, it's saying that if you have this cultivation of mindfulness of death and impermanence and understanding of course and permanence, then it acts as a it helps you to give rise to the other realizations, like the determination to leave cyclic existence and so forth. So that, it's expressed in this one example, advice from Geshe Yeshe Thabkhe, one of the Gadampa Lamas, said that this the path to generating insights is blocked by an awareness of death and impermanence, by until an awareness of death and impermanence have arisen in the mind. So then he's saying that it's actually like an obstacle to you developing these higher realizations. So then meditate on coarse and subtle impermanence.
Siba koala ya ne chakne ne chingwa di pa meba suya koya ne lu longji pisum chokba la ba chakba di shenja di shuebar chingi ra embar dhubla zunbe kuima chok ane soso ne embar ya dhubba nyamle la zungengi kuima chingengi chokdo gyurba di kare sana ane sungrab kuingi nyingbu sangwe damba ne sungrab kuingi ane sangwa jene sungyagi damba di esi mi kangal koshe na nawan dhuyari chigo marwa ngiza sangwe damba ne Tongma chewa chesu tenpa osu, chewa chesu tenpa de jikdengi nyeba kurde la sokpa ne shenji chakpa chingwa cheche re inba dhruba nyamle la kuima tangi chokdo gyurwa re sungrab kungi sangwe tamga de re o de sonza du gyundu chingwa chesu tenpa la bayagu re sungudwa.
So the last verse is saying that one has to, well, we can read it maybe and then. That which cuts craving for reward and honor, the best spur to practice with effort and seclusion. The excellent secret of all the scriptures is initially to remember death, or we can maybe say recall. You're constantly recalling death. Then and the benefit is that it eliminates any kind of craving or attachment for reward and honor, and it's the best spur, I guess, is a good word for this. Really, it urges you on to practice with effort and in seclusion, or not. And then the excellent secret of all the scriptures. It's a very valuable practice.
That's right.
No.
Oh yeah, that is it. Niba liu san damba ne chanshu sembe nanju chube shijabe nambar sheba namshe nyingbu she chawale takbar zimba pangbe tab damba rabji tangbos ne lu longje pisum soba koya pisum soba kariya nati daga degri samsan reshe droni meba chagri samsa samlu mata che tele takbar zimba sikirwa o de takbar zimba pangbe tab damba rabji tangbu dire dwa te sobare.
So this is the first chapter of the 400 verses on the middle way, showing, I don't know how it's in your translation, but 400 on the yogic deeds, showing the means to abandon belief in permanence. So it's this belief that our body and what did it say? Shelter, or the place we stay, and our resources are all somehow, static, and so then this cultivation of the view of our death and impermanence then is the way to eliminate this strong misperception of these things as being static.
Oh yeah, the dako shwa midagba sundu midagba kangal ko jurwa da kasya ne shigi ne ba da langzu da jorba da pesum saban duwa da ya kosa chimbu chaba da kangal ko jura korechi ya ne kanga yana tete takwa de re samje tangji yoranga ju tangji yide de mebre de ko ta shu sar chunirwa tene semle tunge shu chimbu yongwara o tangbune de tunge chongru da ya tendal chiwa mida ba shegyora tunge gal tunge tege de tunge yoye bere tunge gal tunge ya nembe jamne karche gure sigdwa ti sore je chiwa mida ba shede tunge yoye bere tunge gal tunge shegde ni choyo mara tunge she de tunge chongru ge tabshi chigora o ganga de phusum soba de takwa de marda kera takbari tende dege sa marda tibe george tamadil ti me chagri das tachura ko amne tachido o de danda dire se de sheboji gane shenja che 아니 대매에서는 녀바셔도 제제제도 대소 연구 말와 당분에 그 삼로 하고 여러 디디에서 시다 할래야면서 진짜제매 디타마들 디 연구를 삼하고 그라 대고는 동에 총으로 여라 대던 달시에도
So we've been talking about impermanence, and through cultivating an understanding of course impermanence, we can understand the purpose of cultivating any understanding of impermanence. It really helps us to reduce. I mean, what's basically being said here is that suffering is the nature, it's just the nature of our life in cyclic existence. So why add suffering to suffering? Just like it was saying in that one verse. And so then if we, because we're constantly under this apprehension of things as being static or grasping at things as being permanent, then we get involved in these in what do you say, attachment and so forth. So then to reduce our suffering, then it's said that we have to develop this view of things as being non-static or impermanent.
Oh yeah. 어디 누가서래. 치와 메다가 선배 락베 메다가 시도 치와 소 장장 섬디와 말와 강가래 표심조와 탐젤이야. 야가다 가리 중선에 어디 상마데 메다가 예섬 디타딜레티 용그레섬. 로 디타딜레티 용그레섬. 디엔데 딜이야 시다 신샤시에 매섬나. 코메버렌드두자 동이 총주도. 디타긴디나서 강라 치우 냠셈바 강라게바 요교바. Teni jigba yongda de chidala kala jus. Shenda do adre da tezoda shena kawe roko. Shina da deba mesam gyora. Tarize chwa meda ba tende de deba pa kyo tu mesitelia number tag ba che gyora. Ota mesite yakbo che gyari ta shina ke mesam. Sholi jigma roko. O dire. Shenda de tendre da tezoda ka mara. So chiwala majina. Shenda le dilege person so tendre le jigba marwa. So ko namju ngaju tangsin che nga sa takbar de de samdi. Ani che mari bijin de ta samne jigba yongora. O din jigba chur dre tanda sungu yaba da ko ko do.
So it's not only thinking about your own life, you have to extend this idea of impermanence to everything. And so then all the marvels of cyclic existence. And so then the advantage of this is that you will reduce your suffering. It's clear that if you just don't pay any attention to your impermanence and death, and just are so involved in your pursuits, that your self-interest in pursuing what's I and mine, then and then suddenly sort of wake up and say, "Oh, I'm about to die." That you'll be very fearful and have undergo a lot of suffering at that time, and so then in order to free yourself of that suffering, of adding suffering to suffering, really, then it's said that you should cultivate a view of death, cultivate this understanding of course impermanence.
Then chiwalan jigsa de nganju chidani doa chidange jigda ranga wasu karishigwasna o danga shigre shina nyeni du lagre longju lagre kangba lagre o tesu kanga de tendu samjikwe chigiwara o ngone chu samlo konge de tesu da dawale jigba chigiwama tesu da yin bare sosu mebe chagere tesu kariyar kegiyomara o ngone chuba de karjo o shigre shina Jawalangurwa, I guess at the Kavandos, Yawa Yida Tendo, Lamaye. Oh, Tanga Yawa Lekena, to meet in the Yida Lekena, Tendo Lekena, dentro dos chicos chicos saia lenche temo ba shangi beju che saia tu ya saia che ti khakbure samje 저 치말이야 시차네 계산들은 지금네 네 계산 야부지 해야 된다 답시 지겨라 지내랑가 가지고 디 나시선 대서 가가 레도 그래서 심대 지겨라 디 지바 가서 그랬다 라바 삼로 땅 마둥 개쪽에 직당한테 쳐가지고 들린 지기요 말해 원도사 들린 지기네 일하다 밀기 왔죠 된다를 매기가 주바게 왔죠 그도 어디지
So then there's two kinds of fear. There's a fear of those who haven't really thought things through, and with regards to death, and so then when they are faced with having to separate from those who are beloved to them, and separate from basically. Feel that they are coming to an end, separating from, I guess we would call it, just, how are we going to say that? Just yourself being annihilated and everything's ending. That kind of fear is for somebody who hasn't really thought it through. For somebody who's practicing the Dharma, then fear of death is not that, but considering what's going to happen after death, and then thinking, well, maybe I could be reborn into one of the unfortunate realms, and what would I do then? Say if I was born as an animal and be totally under the control of others and being killed and chopped into pieces and so forth. These kinds of considerations of the future life, and then fearing what you're going to, what's going to happen to you in your future lifetime, then you engage in abstaining from the 10 non-virtuous deeds and so forth, ensuring that you won't have a difficult rebirth.
That is so.
So then, that's the end of our class on this particular topic. Tutsu Young is also, huh?
That's just.
I think it's the end of the time period too, right?